Can you, I mean, in terms of just sort of living here as maybe not so much about business, but what are the sort of things you love about living in Japan?
There's a lot. I love the convenience. I love the politeness. I love the, in many ways, the way of life. I mean, things work here. Your building doesn't suddenly lose electricity. It's happened to me when I was in Hawaii and I was on the 26th floor. 3 days without electricity is kind of really painful. Going up and down the stairs. So things like that. The politeness, you know, even if it's only superficial, at least when you go into a shop, people are polite to you. Time and again, I can say that I've seen that not happen in other countries, and it also has always been, you know, surprising to me. So I like that. I like the fact that you can. I mean, I haven't seen a street fight in Japan for, I don't know, ever, and that, you know,
So safe. Yeah.
you're safe. You don't have those problems. So, and the convenience. I mean, if I need to buy something, it's not really a question of how far do I have to go. It's more of which one do I go to within the 100 meters areas that I'm in now. So it's very convenient. And I like the people. I like the people. Obviously, it's a major part of
What do you like
equation.
about Japanese people?
Well, the politeness, the fun. To a certain extent, I suppose. I've adapted to the people here, and I just, most of the interactions I have, it's the concept of keeping a promise and all kinds of things like that. I mean, very seldom am I stuck on a street corner waiting for somebody. You know, we said 12 o'clock. Usually they arrive at 5 to 12. Now, there are some exceptions, of course. But
I'm dying to ask you, Carl, because I'm kind of quite a long-term resident. How about humor, Japanese sense of humor? Is that something you've managed to sort of understand, or?
You know, it's funny you should mention that, because most people will say Japanese people don't have a sense of humor, but I don't think it's true. I mean, personally, I'm not at all into the slapstick humor that they have on TV here. I think it's kind of demeaning most of the time. But if I'm with my friends and we're talking, I mean, they love a funny story, so whenever you tell them a funny story, they'll go with it. Sometimes you have to explain it, which doesn't make it so funny anymore. But they're very forgiving if you make a joke that's not funny, or they'll laugh at the fact that it's not funny. So from that perspective, there's a lot. And actually, I think there is a subtlety in the humor here. Quite often, the way they'll, you know, return a comment to you, and you know, sometimes at first it was like 2 days later I'd kind of turn around and say, that guy was making fun of me. And now I pick it up much faster, and you know, once you pick up on the fact that he's, you know, then you can return the favor on the spot, and you can have some fun.
Flip side of that same question, anything you hate about living here?
I guess there's one word in Japan that I really dislike with a passion, and that would be the word shoganai, which means we can't do anything about it. And you asked me earlier on what had changed about Japan. When I first came to Japan, shoganai was not a word that I heard frequently, and it really was only for things that you know. You did that, well, that's too bad. And it really was too bad. Now it's kind of shogunai this, shogunai that, shogunai everything type of mentality. I'm exaggerating a bit, but it's a word that you hear much more frequently, and where it really bugs me, and it applies to all G8 nations, actually, to a great extent, in my opinion, but and it goes back to the big change needed. The political system here is so out of whack, and with what's needed for the country, with everything, and the general view is, oh well, shogunai, they're the politicians, you know, too bad, we can't do anything about it. Well, yes, you can vote, you can complain, you can go and demonstrate. There's a lot of things you can do, and it's kind of just washed away under this too bad syndrome. And again, I mean, I don't think Japan is the only country, quote unquote, guilty of that by any means. There's just a lot to be done. And I guess the other thing is, and it applies to all G8 countries, is the media in general, which is really dumbing things down to a level unseen before. So those are the two things I don't like so much about Japan. But in general, no. I mean, I lived in France for a year and a half, and I had something like, I can't remember, 12 administrative problems, of getting my papers lost, or I had never had that problem here. I've had problems, but it's usually like it takes them longer to understand my situation, which is, I must admit, a bit different and complicated, especially for them. And you can spend 3 hours in the City Hall explaining something that should take 5 minutes, but they're not going to lose your papers. With one exception. That hasn't applied to me when they lost all the retirement papers of
I see. Yeah,
contributions of people in a few years ago.
That's
But
right.
it's an exception.
Right, interesting. Thank you. Again, for our viewers, in terms of, say, historical figures, authors, or just maybe business people in Japan that you sort of admire, respect, or like, or anyone like that?
There's one movie director that I like in particular, whose name is Itami Juzo, and I don't know if it's coincidental or not, but he basically has this humoristic approach, to go back to that question, which is very sarcastic in some ways, of looking at Japanese society. So he's made films like the Tampopo, which is about a Japanese noodle shop, and how, and he kind of takes all the funny sides or the extremes of that industry and really pushes them to a yet further level of extreme and ridicule. And he's done that also with a movie called Daibyonin, which means the very ill person, and these people who go to hospital for a yes or for a no, who always feel hypochondriac is the word I was looking for, and so he does that based on Japanese society. So if you want to have a funny take on Japanese society and its quirks, and maybe give you an insider's view of what even some Japanese think is a bit out of whack. He's got a lot of movies like that, and two of the movies he made were about the Japanese mafia, and after the second one he committed suicide. Although not everybody is quite too sure about what happened to him. So unfortunately he's not in this world anymore. But I think his movies are very interesting. It's a bit like the French playwright Molière. Same kind of approach.
Interesting comparison, yeah. Okay, 3 more quick questions. If you could combine, say, for example, the strengths of Japan, maybe Britain, France, Hawaii, whichever countries you like, what would you kind of pick out to create this, like a super culture, super country?
I think that Japan's the strength of many Japanese people and the strength of Japan as a result of that is their ability to focus on something to the extent where they really go for perfection. If you watch the Tom Cruise movie, what's it called again? The Last Samurai, was it? There's one small part in that movie where he says, in my opinion, something that's very true and useful. And he's walking by the swordsmith, and he says, he notices how that swordsmith is focusing on his sword until he gets it to utter perfection, and then further, living to the exclusion of everything else just for the sake of getting that one little blade perfect that day. And so that's the great thing about Japanese culture. It's also its detriment because it is at the exclusion of everything, and more and more we live in a society where everything is really interlinked. So, and by that same respect, it's kind of hard to put that with something else because it means that it's, you know, the definition of that real point is exactly
excludes everything.
Exclusive. And
interesting.
one of the problems Japanese industry is having right now is they have a lot in relative terms, but a lot of people who've been doing the same job for 40 years and who can basically at the touch of their thumb realize that that piece of metal that they're crafting is 1 micron too big in a specific spot, and just by, you know, they do that with their thumb. That there's no measuring instrument that can do that. And so you've got these people that have done that all their life, and it's a passion to get that 1 micron that you know nobody would think it's possible for a human to tell the difference, but they do it. And it's also, you know, one of the big questions about Japan for the future. There are no people following in those footsteps.
Right.
So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see, but I don't see how you could put them together.
Okay, good, interesting answer. Good. Tips? Any tips for foreigners living here or thinking of coming here? Maybe they're going to be transferring here. How to get on with Japanese people? How to live and enjoy your time in Japan?
Don't compare with home. It's the easiest answer. I mean, every single foreigner I know of will usually go in 3 stages, which is, you know, rule of thumb roughly. First year, everything's wonderful. Second year, things start to look really bad. By the end of the second year, everything is really bad. And then 2 years later, if you stay that long, you realize that it's a country like any other country with its good sides and its bad sides. But what really makes the difference is don't compare it to your home country. You know, accept things for what they are here, because no matter how bad or how good they are, there's usually something that balances out on the other side, and that's, you know, it's a human country like any other human country.
Interesting. Carlo, it's been great talking to you, and my last question. Oh, you've been very passionate, kind of your opinions on that. What are you passionate about in your own life?
Good God. I guess I like to read a lot, and I like to I think people are my passion. That's what my passion is. People in general.
How do you mean people?
Well, I like communication with them, and I like networking. I like meeting people. I like observing people a lot. So I guess that would be my biggest, you know, thing that keeps me ticking.
Great. Been so nice having you here with us, Carlo. So thanks again.
Thank you very much. My pleasure.
And that's it for this edition of Inside Japan. I'm Adam Kassab, and thank you for joining us. Catch you next time.